I'm joined now by Elizabeth Butler of the law firm of Pierce Atwood, a very interesting person because her history has been working on the law of the sea, which is one of the great complex legal issues that has kept many people busy for many years, with all sorts of ramifications when you think about the size of the ocean. And every country on earth, almost every country, there are some exceptions of course, the landlocked ones, has an investment in the law of the sea, or at least a point of view about it. Welcome to the broadcast. Tell me about the law of the sea, and then we will get round to ocean generation of electricity.
Well, the law of the sea has been tremendously important for the northeast of the United States, all parts of the United States, but because Maine, for many years, my home, has relied upon its exports by the maritime channels, the law of the sea has been critical to Maine's economic development. And today, the law of the sea is vitally important to our newest challenge, which is the growth of the marine renewable energy sector.
And you were on the staff of the state of Maine and an advisor to the governor?
I was very fortunate as a young attorney to work for the Maine Attorney General's office as an assistant there, and also as chief counsel to Maine's independent governor, Angus King, a number of years ago.
And now you practice law and you consult to companies in the marine energy arena.
That's right.
And
I work for the firm of Pierce Atwood, and we represent marine renewable energy companies who are innovating wonderful new technology, growing jobs in the state of Maine, and creating energy for Maine homes that is emissions-free.
What are the issues?
It's a fascinating area. First of all, these wonderful companies have to develop their technology, and a lot of this seminar is about the challenges, the technological challenges that they face. But as they are successful and they have that technology ready to be deployed, they then have to run the gauntlet of environmental permitting that assures that those projects will not harm the environment and will provide the emissions-free electricity at a cost-competitive price.
Most people rather naively think because it's underwater it can't hurt anything.
Well,
but of course it has all sorts of consequences.
The mature companies understand that when they go to develop a project, they are going into a long occupied space. That isn't a bare expanse of water. That is space that has been occupied by generations who have worked the sea for their living. And you have fishermen there, you have marine transport, you have other marine industries as well. And so it's about sharing a space in a maximum compatible manner.
And what would be the impact, say, of a generating plant on a lobster fisherman?
That's just what the lobster fishermen want to know. And the wonderful thing is that if a company approaches this entire process in a science-driven manner, in an open and transparent way, where they sit with the local people, where they discuss the project, they describe it, they make clear what their objectives are, and then people start working together on that local level. Of course, you have to go through the governmental permitting channels, but there is also an opportunity to work with local communities before that permitting process begins, to build relationship, to build trust, to help them see the vision of the economic development that can occur, which is in an environmentally sustainable manner, economically sustainable and environmentally sustainable as well.
One of the things that people don't think about, but which is of consequence, is the impact on marine life.
Yes.
Not just on the lobster fishermen, but maybe the lobster itself.
That's right.
What is Maine doing to learn about that?
The federal and state permitting process requires an exhaustive review of the potential impacts on marine animals. The entire process that is now put together in a very coordinated way between the state and federal government, has an applicant look first at the species in the area, determine which species may be impacted, what the degree of impact will be, and how the project can be configured to minimize those impacts on
Of course, we
marine
don't
resources.
actually know because all these projects are new. Or they're
Well, and
not.
you're right on to the topic, the issue. How do we accelerate the development of this technology in that environmentally and economically sustainable way? That means you've got to move a project through testing in a way that won't hurt the environment, but also doesn't completely blow up the company's ability to sustain itself economically. And the key feature of the new pilot project license that FERC has recently issued, one to Verdant, one to Ocean Renewable Power Company, is that they get the equipment in the water with appropriate preventative conditions in place to assure that nothing will be harmed. They then have a small-scale project in an appropriate location to test the equipment and to monitor it extensively to understand what the impacts actually will be.
One of the assets of Maine is the beauty of the shoreline. It's
Yes.
not just the fish that come out of there, it's the people who go to look at the shore and to
vital.
vacation there.
That's true.
Are there visual impacts anticipated with these generators when they come on shore, power lines, that kind of thing?
It's a great advantage of tidal power that the generating assets are under the water, out of the line of sight. The cables themselves only emerge on the shoreline and in the intertidal zone and up to a building that will be much like any other shoreside facility. So one can fairly say that the impacts are remarkably minimal of a tidal power project.
You talk about this as though it's a state issue, but in fact, none of these issues recognize state boundaries or national boundaries for that matter.
Very true.
And the immediate neighbors to Maine, you've got international as well as national issues. How do the Canadians feel about shore power? They have their own, don't they, or their own
The Gulf of Maine,
incipient,
yes, you're right, Llewellyn. The Gulf of Maine is a shared resource, and with our dear friends across the Canadian border, we share that resource, and we work very hard to coordinate the work of both the states and the provinces, and of course the two federal governments as well. Canada is fascinated by the potential of marine hydrokinetic power. They have poured enormous resources, human resources, technical resources, financial resources, into developing that because the Canadians, very wise in these issues, see instantly opportunity. This is a wonderful rural development industry. It is compatible with their other natural resource-based industries. They understand that this is a step into a much improved economy for stressed rural economies. So I think we are friendly colleagues, but the United States needs to understand clearly the Canadians are very strong competitors. And we need to do everything possible to expedite the development channels for our nascent industry. Or we may find our very, very sophisticated cousins in Canada walking off with this industry.
What do you feel about the costs? Do you think the costs will come down to be competitive?
I do. I believe it will follow the track of all technology, that it will rapidly reduce the costs of production. It will rapidly improve in operational costs. It's wonderful to hear the Department of Energy speakers today talk about their responsibility to contribute to accelerating that curve of improvement. And it is a vital role for the United States in order to develop and sustain our indigenous renewable resource capacity and energy production capacity.
How do you feel about the subsidies that all renewables get and which are under attack on Capitol Hill?
Like every industry, you have to support and help a growing industry. It would be difficult to identify a single industry in the United States that does not receive some form of subsidy from a state, federal, or local government. It would be very difficult indeed. I'd be fascinated to hear of one. In this case, the renewable energy subsidies will be time limited, they will be phased out, and you get to the competitive marketplace. But we have a vital national interest to be served by becoming independent of our dependence upon, independent in our energy resources and no longer dependent upon foreign sources of oil with tremendous
But
costs
it's some
associated.
leap from electricity to oil. They're not exactly competing with each other.
Well, in Maine, we're one of the two most energy-dependent states, oil-dependent states. And so we have to look very carefully at controlling our economic future and stabilizing the tremendous price spikes in oil that will seriously jeopardize our economic survival.
So you believe that we're about to see electric vehicles, etc., to replace the soil?
In time, all of those opportunities will present themselves if they are market competitive, and a number of very bright people think that's a viable option.
Is Maine a renewable portfolio state?
It is, and
What is the percentage?
it is, I believe, 35%, although there is...
That's quite large.
It is, we're hydro-rich, but there are always ongoing discussions of whether you go up or down with that portfolio standard. But very clearly, marine hydrokinetic power would help Maine become even more independent.
Isn't it wonderful to be a lawyer who's excited about something
It is always,
besides the billable hours?
I think the citizens of Maine are tremendously excited across all parts of our state about the opportunity to have challenging jobs, new jobs for the next generation, and emissions-free electricity generation using the tides of Maine that have driven our economy in the past and will drive the economy of the future.
Elizabeth Butler, it's marvelous to feel your excitement.
Thank you, sir.